We have just received a statement from Buckingham Palace confirming that the Duke of Edinburgh has died.
Ever wondered why Prince Philip had to move out of the palace he shared with his wife, the former Queen of England? Well, the royal family always tries all it can to make sure that private matters aren't always made known to the public. But this has become a recipe for some controversial assumptions, with many believing that Prince Philip might have been caught in an infidelity scandal. In a bid to put such assumptions to rest, King Charles made the reason for this unusual separation public, and you will be amazed at what he had to say. Just sit tight and follow us through this eye-opening journey. On June 10, 1921, Prince Philip was born on the Greek island of Corfu to Prince Andrew of Greece and Denmark, and Princess Alice of Battenberg, being the youngest child and only son. Philip's early life was very turbulent times considering the status of his family and the political turmoil at that time. His father was Prince Andrew, the younger son of King George I of Greece, and his mother was Princess Alice, closely related to the British royal family and herself a great-granddaughter of Queen Victoria. These royal parentages notwithstanding, Philip's family struggled through one calamity after another that defined his childhood and upbringing. Prince Philip's ancestry is inextricably linked with European monarchies. While his paternal line was a house of Glucksburg ruling in Greece and Denmark, his maternal line had some link with the British and German nobility. His family had to flee Greece in 1922 when he was an infant because his father was imprisoned after a disastrous military campaign in Asia Minor. The Greek monarchy was in a state of great turmoil, and the family was forced into exile, making their escape in a British naval ship, with young Prince Philip, then just 18 months old, traveling in a makeshift cot constructed from an orange crate. This exile was the beginning of a rather nomadic childhood for Philip, frequently filled with challenges. The family finally settled down in Paris, living modestly with the support of relatives. This precipitated severe financial instability and fragmentation within his family, as his father moved to southern France, while his mother had some grievous mental problems and was eventually institutionalized. These events largely separated Philip from his parents, and he was afterward taken care of by the maternal relatives in the United Kingdom, especially his uncles, Lord Louis Mountbatten and George Mountbatten, the second Marquess of Milford Haven. Philip's education was also quite unusual. For a very short time, he attended an American school in Paris, but later was sent for schooling in the United Kingdom. He first attended Cheam School in Surrey, then Gordonstown, an arduous boarding school in Scotland noted for its priorities regarding physical fitness and character building. Gordonstown was to feature later as an important influence on Philip's values and worldview, founded by Dr. Kurt Hahn. Its guiding principles of self-reliance, resilience, and discipline, all qualities which suited Philip particularly well. It was also at Gordonstown that Philip developed an interest in the sea, and in 1939 he entered the Royal Naval College at Dartmouth, doing very well academically and graduating as the best cadet in his term. His naval career would later take him to distinguish himself during World War II in theaters of action in both the Mediterranean and Pacific. These experiences further tempered his already well-honed leadership skills and contributed to his sense of duty and service. Philip first met Princess Elizabeth, the future Queen of the United Kingdom, when he was 13 years old and she was 8 years old. It wasn't until 1939, however, that King George VI and Queen Elizabeth visited the Royal Naval College in Dartmouth that the two began to attain some sort of connection. Now age 18, Philip was put in charge of entertaining the 13-year-old Princess Elizabeth and her sister Princess Margaret around the college. It is said that during this visit, Elizabeth fell in love with Philip and thus started writing to each other regularly. It was during the war years that their relationship blossomed. On his leave, Philip would spend visiting time with the royal family when he went on leave at Windsor Castle. Despite the misgivings of some members of the royal family and courtiers early on, since Philip had no secure financial standing and had a very complexly intertwined family background, Elizabeth remained committed to him. Soon, Philip's charming, confident, and witty nature won the hearts of Elizabeth's parents and the British public. In 1946, Philip formally sought the king's permission to marry Elizabeth. For this path, Philip renounced the Greek and Danish royal titles and adopted the surname Mountbatten, anglicizing his association with the British royals. Further, he was made to convert from Greek Orthodoxy to Anglicanism. In this way, he solidified this relationship with the United Kingdom. The engagement of the royal couple was announced on July 9, 1947, and later married on November 20, 1947, in a glittering ceremony at Westminster Abbey. It was a wedding that had taken place a couple of years after the end of World War II and brought hope and rebirth to a nation that was being browbeaten by most of the devastation caused by war. King George VI made him, on the morning of the marriage, Duke of Edinburgh, Earl of Merioneth, and Baron Greenwich. The new role of consort brought with it privileges, but placed Philip secondary to Elizabeth, who became the monarch in 1952 upon the death of her father. As the consort of Queen Elizabeth, Prince Philip had a job quite unlike anything previously experienced in the history of the British monarchy. He made sure he was instrumental in both the modernization of the monarchy and championing certain causes that were close to his heart. His contributions to initiating the Duke of Edinburgh's award for the personal development and physical fitness of the young date back to 1956. Today, this initiative has assumed an international scope, benefiting millions of youths from over 140 countries around the world. Innumerable varieties of royal engagements, state visits, and tours were supported by Prince Philip as consort. His work involved more than 800 organizations and encompassed, amongst others, environmental conservation, scientific research, and also the activities and development of youth. His marriage to Queen Elizabeth was considered the longest in British history among all the monarchs, having lasted for more than 73 years. Together, they weathered the many storms, including the ever-changing tide of political thought, crises within the family, and scandals among its members. Undoubtedly, Philip's role, though secondary to that of the Queen, was that of giving stability to the monarchy. He stood as a steadfast companion, guiding Elizabeth through the necessary adjustments that the monarchy needed to make in response to modern demands. It is a legacy that will forever be indelibly etched on the British royal family and the nation. Prince Philip began his military career at the Royal Naval College, Dartmouth, in 1939. Being an exemplary cadet, he came out as one of the best graduates in his class with high merit. He continued serving in the Navy during the Second World War, with distinction in both the Mediterranean and Pacific theaters. He had been assigned to several ships, including HMS Ramillies, HMS Valiant, and HMS Wallace, in which he participated energetically and meaningfully. Among the most identifiable wartime contributions of Philip was that during service as a first lieutenant aboard HMS Wallace, during a heavy night air raid off the coast of Sicily in 1943, he worked out a scheme of firing a smoke float that diverted enemy planes from his ship, thus saving countless lives. It was this saving act of quick thinking and bravery that earned him the admiration of his comrades and set the stage for a promising naval career. After the war, Philip remained in the Royal Navy, rising to lieutenant commander and being given command of HMS Magpie. His naval career was brought to an early close when, on the death of King George VI in 1952, his wife Elizabeth acceded to the throne. Although his active service was brief, Philip's service to the Navy was significant, and his passion for everything associated with the sea would continue through his life, during which he also served in the more ceremonial role of Admiral of the Fleet in later years. When he married Queen Elizabeth, Prince Philip undertook a role unique in the annals of any British monarchy as a male consort to a reigning queen. Well aware that his life should not be bound by purposes of protocol alone, Prince Philip immersed himself in the gamut of activities with such energy and success that those within and outside the monarchy began looking upon him with respect. Prince Philip was also an avid environmentalist throughout his life, supporting a wide array of organizations involved in conservation and wildlife protection. He was the first president of the World Wildlife Fund UK in 1961, and later its international president between 1981 and 1996. He fostered environmentalism at a time when the subject was less mainstream and hence set a trend for royal involvement with international issues. In the initial stages, there were some issues with what an appropriate title would be for Prince Philip. He was later made Duke of Edinburgh, Earl of Merioneth, and Baron Greenwich. But it seemed there were issues defining his roles, as he was not officially named Prince Consort, which, as a matter of fact, would have been his proper title. This lack of clear designation produced some friction, since Philip struggled to work out what his responsibilities were under a system that did not have much precedent for a male consort. Another large bone of contention was over the surname of the royal family. Philip's surname of Mountbatten was a part of who he was, and he wished for his children to carry the name as well. The name of the family was brought into controversy with the accession of Elizabeth to the throne. At the time, Prime Minister Winston Churchill advised Queen Elizabeth to retain the name Windsor, as it had been since 1917. For Philip, this was a disappointment. The reported comment he in frustration at the time was, "I am nothing but a bloody amoeba," implying that he thus had no identity and his role within the family was undermined. This was partly rectified in 1960 when Queen Elizabeth ruled that her descendants who did not bear the title Royal Highness or were not entitled to titles should bear the surname Mountbatten-Windsor. The compromise allowed for an acknowledgement of Philip's heritage without changing the royal surname, which had been Windsor. The issue in many ways echoed the tenuous balancing of tradition with personal identity within the monarchy. Queen Elizabeth had 4 children with Prince Philip, including Charles, Anne, Andrew, and Edward. And each one of them had different responsibilities and roles to play that came with being part of the monarchy. Born in 1948, Charles was the eldest among the children, and thus the heir apparent to the throne. He had grown up in the shadow cast equally by Elizabeth's view of him as a future monarch, and the resolute emphasis Philip placed on resilience and self-reliance. Charles frequently spoke about the ambiguous relationship he had with Philip because of the way his father's demanding and occasionally ascetic nature conflicted with Charles's own sensitive temperament. The influence of Philip, however, was also echoed in Charles's commitment to environmental causes and his commitment to charitable causes. As for Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, born in 1950, she shared Philip's passion for sports, particularly equestrian sports. Famed for her straightforwardness and dedication, Anne is today one of the hardest-working members of the royal family and is often praised for her no-nonsense handling of her royal duties. Her approach and rigorous sense of duty were inspired by Philip. Andrew, on his path, was born in 1960 and joined the Royal Navy like his father did. Philip's military career influenced the early career of Andrew, who, with particular pride, served for the Duke of Edinburgh in the Navy. His later years were plagued by controversy that drew very public scrutiny toward the royals. Prince Edward, Earl of Wessex, is the youngest child and has focused, in the first years, on a career in the arts. Later, he took up royal work on a full-time basis and has supported many charitable organizations, among them the Duke of Edinburgh's Award, whose international growth he has overseen. Among all his children, Edward has often been seen as the one most directly influenced by Philip's legacy, particularly with regard to his loyalty to the continuation of his father's work with the award program. In his later years, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, was always in poor health and was in and out of hospitals for one diagnosis after another. His last few years were dotted with health issues that tested his resilience. In addition to these, Prince Philip was involved in a car accident that received quite a bit of media attention, which speculated that he might not be as fit as he used to be. He was active until his later years, conducting and carrying out royal duties. He began to face a myriad of health issues throughout 2010. His first major health scare came in December 2011, when he was rushed to Papworth Hospital in Cambridge after complaints of chest pains. It emerged that he had a blocked coronary artery for which doctors installed an emergency stent. The surgery was successful and he recuperated well. However, this was the beginning of ailments that became frequent. In 2012, Philip was taken into the hospital because of a bladder infection, and hence couldn't be part of Queen Elizabeth's Diamond Jubilee closing activities. He had received a couple of days' treatment for the condition, after which he was advised to scale back his official duties. The spirit of service was, however, not crushed, and he carried on attending engagements for as long as his health allowed him to do so. Successive years saw Prince Philip being admitted to the hospital, often due to chronic infections besides other problems linked to aging. In 2017, he officially retired from active public life at the ripe age of 96 years, once he had done more than 22,000 solo engagements in his working life as a royal. The number of public appearances kept reducing after retirement, with continued health problems. He underwent hip replacement surgery in the year 2018, which kept him in the hospital for continuous days. Fortunately, the surgery went well, and he started walking again and resumed public appearances. In 2019 and 2020, he was again admitted to the hospital due to his pre-existing conditions, and with each such admission, lots of fear about failing health mounted. In early 2021, Prince Philip was taken to King Edward VII's hospital as a precautionary measure for treatment of an infection. He stayed in the hospital longer as a heart condition was also diagnosed, and was then moved to St. Bartholomew's Hospital for a heart procedure. A month later, he returned to Windsor Castle, but it soon became clear his health was rapidly deteriorating. In January 2019, the most recent well-known incident involving Prince Philip took place at the time when he was 97 years old. This was near the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. He was driving his Land Rover across a busy junction when he crashed into another vehicle. His flipped onto its side, while the other vehicle rolled over. Considering the impact, Philip got away comparatively unscathed. The occupants of the other vehicle, including 2 women and a 9-month-old baby, came off worse, though, with a broken wrist on one of the passengers. The accident thus triggered a public debate on the issue of elderly driving. After this accident, Prince Philip offered to surrender his driving license with consideration of the risk factors in view to keep others safe too. From that early 2021 hospitalization onward, his health declined until at the age of 99 years, Prince Philip died peacefully at Windsor Castle on April 9, 2021. He stood by Queen Elizabeth's side for over 7 decades and brought a very significant era to a close regarding the British royal family. In recent years, King Charles III has spoken about how his father once wished to leave Buckingham Palace and take up more permanent residence on Wood Farm at the Sandringham estate. There were numerous rumors that this was due either to marital problems or infidelity, but such rumors were later quelled by Charles. He stated that his father simply wanted quieter times in his later years after serving in the public eye. He said that for a very long time, Prince Philip had wanted to step back from the pressures of royal life and spend his last years in a more retired and quiet atmosphere. This way, he would be able to appreciate nature and his interests in privacy, and he also would be in the position to spend time with his family. Charles explained that it was not because of some divisions within the monarchy family, but that was his father's personal decision since he intended to have peace in his remaining years. Despite all the challenges and scrutiny that came with the status of the Queen's consort, Prince Philip stayed married for over 70 years, surely an attestation to mutual respect and a commitment between the married partners. He is said to take great pride in his 4 children and many grandchildren, always being active in family matters until he passed away. Prince Philip had faced his fair share of challenges that came with being a royal. That may well be the case, but he kept himself right as an icon of steadfastness in the royal family, which is continually remembered by the British and people everywhere. Do you believe King Charles's revelation to be the truth? Do let us know in the comments, and we will see you in the next one.